Well, Angela and Mark, I talked to a lot of people today and they say, hey, it happens. We've seen it happen before. Basically, when things heat up, they get bigger, they expand, they get longer. So think of railroad tracks. The rails get longer and that can buckle the rails and derail the trains. Same thing happens on concrete, happens on asphalt, like out here on these streets. But one of the things designed to make it go away can actually, as we found out, make it worse. By now, you've probably seen the pictures, a buckled piece of 4th Avenue South near the Costco, which popped up in the heat. But I bet you didn't know what highway engineers actually call this. It's called a blow-up. This is an old stretch of highway. The Seattle Department of Transportation says at least 50 years old, possibly older. Slabs of concrete poured in sections. Between sections is an expansion joint. But according to Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering Steve Munch of the University of Washington, expansion joints are kind of a trap. No, literally a trap. They collect debris, rocks, pebbles, and other stuff, and in other words, they fill up. And when the concrete wants to expand, they don't give, and you get a blow-up. It may not seem like it, but if you were to drive all of Seattle's streets, you would travel thousands of miles. That's a lot to maintain. Ethan Bergeson is with the Seattle Department of Transportation.
Time keeps on going by. These things aren't built to last forever. We need to always be assessing what the maintenance needs are in order to make sure we're putting the right fixes in the right places where it's needed most.
And this isn't just about roads. Bridges are more complex and have to be retrofitted for earthquakes and need more maintenance.
And the real priority there is always looking at things like public safety, as you mentioned, looking at where the biggest needs are in order to make sure we're getting the most bang for the buck.
But it's not just old infrastructure. Sound Transit's light rail line is actually pretty new, but it also had heat-related problems. The electrical overhead wires are called catenary. Wires expand too in the heat, and there's a system to deal with that. These wheels and the poles keep the wires taut from sagging. But Sound Transit says that tensioner had its own heat problems and didn't work between the Mount Baker and Columbia stations, and the wire for one of the tracks, which is kept pretty flat, sagged. Now, I asked Professor Mensch, what about the effects of more heat, more climate change, more sun exposure, future clouds going forward? And he says he actually works with the Federal Highway Administration looking at pavement resistance. He says that is something they're actually starting to look at. Live in Seattle, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.